Hello, I'm Michael Redmond, Professional 9 Dan. In this video, I'll be looking at the final of the Kuksu Mountains tournament, which is an international tournament, Korean sponsors. It was being played in Korea this week. The finalists were Shin Jinseo, representing Korea, and Shin Minjun. So both players were Koreans. The time control is 30 minutes, and they have overtimes of 40 seconds, I think 5 times. Shin Jinseo is black, diving into the 3-3 point again. So I'll talk a little bit about this variation of the 3-3 point. It does involve a ladder. In this board position, the ladder favors white. So there's this ladder. If black pushes through here, and cannot capture in the ladder, this is not going to be good for black. So this is the ladder that I'm talking about. If black pushes through and cuts, like on this side, then black will get the corner. But white gets a ponnuki on the outside, and this is probably okay for white. This joseki in the upper right, it is a joseki, so you might say it's even, but it sort of depends on the board position, and I would say it depends on how filled up the board is, because white's ponnuki, white's shape there, is it is more influential when there are fewer stones on the board. So early in the game like this tends to be good for white, while it can be good for black later in the game. So towards the end game, it's often a good idea for black to play this way. Instead, black played the hane here. So what black is trying to do with this move is, for instance, if white answers like this, now black can cut on the outside, and this is going to be better than the joseki I was just showing you, this one. So the reason it's better is that if black cuts here and white takes it, then black gets to take these 2 white stones off the board. And so the exchange of 1 for this black stone is actually very bad for white. And it takes away all of the aji that was which these 2 white stones had. So in this position, those stones had some aji associated with them, and that white could extend down here, and after white played a push here, there would be a forcing move here, for instance. And so white had a number of forcing moves in the vicinity. And if black starts with the hane here, then white answers like that, then in this variation white's losing all of those things. So that's the meaning of black's hane. If white connects, then black can extend here. In this case, connecting at S16 is still a really big move that would reduce white's territory to something like 3 points. So white's probably going to take that. And this is a good result for black. So when black can push through and cut at 4, and white has to add a stone to the corner like this, then it's okay for black. Okay, so white pushed. And now, of course, black can capture these stones by pushing through and cutting. But in this case, that stone on the second line at S17, that's a wasted stone now. So this would just be good for white. So black plays away. White jumps. By adding stones like this, white is preparing to play this move next. So we'll see that happen in the game. Alright, so this is a reasonable exchange. Black played the double kakori, white played the attachment and extended, and black had to play an extension on the top side to settle that group. Still, when white plays at S18, it's still a good idea for black to push through and cut, even if black stops at this point, but actually black extended. And S16 is still this point. It's still a big point. Black can play here or play the hanging connection. Moves like this will be forcing towards the corner. So that's actually pretty big, and white took the 1 stone. So black got to escape on this side also. In the game, white played an attachment. So this is an attempt to cut off those 2 stones. If white had pressed from above, then black would have pushed through just to make sure that white things change if black doesn't play that exchange right now. So black immediately plays that exchange, and can connect underneath. So it'd be something like this. This would be okay for black. Black would be connected all over. So white's trying to go after those stones. The idea would be if black plays a hane, white's going to play a double hane. And black can save the stones on the right, but then white would be getting the stones on the left. So that's how the tesuji of that attachment works. In the game, black pushed through. So at this point, if white answers by covering, black is going to cut. And so this fight is a bit dangerous for white. If white continues with the cut here, then black can play a hane here. And this is threatening, well, for instance, the cut at c17, black might play c18 instead, but black has that move in the corner. Or if white answers on this side, black can capture this stone. Or black can continue to attack the corner. Actually, black can play here. So that's how this is working. And in the game, white pulled back. And then black played here. So with this exchange here, what black is doing is that if white plays here, the idea is to push through again here and reduce the value of the upper left area before taking this one stone. So that's the plan that black has here. And black would be okay in this variation. So although white did get to surround the upper left area, black got to push through here and make a strong position on the left side. So black got paid back for that one stone at f17 twice, basically, living on the top side and pushing through in the area where I've marked. So white played here, and black played here. So that was a trade. White got the 3 stones. I think the game was fairly even up to this point. Okay, so this is the joseki. Black could extend here. That would be the simple move. I suppose white would either invade the right side, or actually this would be a really big move also. But black plays here. This is the more popular joseki, and black cuts here. White cuts. So this is a case where white there's some value in white trading to the right side. Otherwise, white could have played here. And white can take or cannot take. It's a choice, because black will probably answer 3, but white doesn't actually have to play that because white can live on this side also. Like this. So white might just leave it after that. So in the game, this is a case where white is trying to trade to the right side. So white played like this and actually played here. So this is an unusual move. You would usually see white playing here. And the latter favors black. If black plays 2, that is. So the latter favors black. It would probably be something like this. And yes, so a fight somewhat like this, where black would be aiming eventually to attack white in the lower left area. In the game, white played a hane. So the difference between this move and this move is pretty subtle. I think this is still okay for black, although the suggested move by my computer was that black should play here. And I think the idea with this move is that black is not going to emphasize, it's not going to use a move or a tempo, you might say, to save these 3 stones. So black needs to, rather than saving these 3 stones, using a move to save them, black wants to change the focus of the fight, probably to this area. So the way black's going to do that is black is going to start with this. So it seemed to be really important for black to play this forcing move. And of course white could back off at this point. So white could play here, but then that would have just been a forcing move for black. And afterwards, if white plays here, black doesn't need to save that 1 stone. So that's why every time black does that, white's probably going to cut here once before saving the stones on the side. but there is some momentum to this fight for black. And white 12 is a tesuji. For instance, if white had played here, black would be getting a fairly solid shape on the left. So black's focus here is the lower left, and so that's why black is playing in a fashion that gives black a strong position there on the left side. So this is how it would work for black. And he still did not play the Tari at c12, so Katago really didn't like that, and after this was giving white a good score. So I think it's a combination of the fact that black spent a whole move here, which in this game variation, you might say it's a trade of this black stone for the marked white stone. And the marked white stone is actually a pretty important stone. So another way to put it would be to say that the exchange of the two marked stones here was bad for black. And also the fact that he attacked this side first and allowed white to play the extension at c12. That was pretty important. And white played here, and so again we see very similar to the joseki in the lower right. Only in this case, white is probably thinking of sacrificing everything to the right of that stone that white just played. So black had a number of choices. Black could have played here. Sorry. And black would be able to capture these stones, but it would be on a small scale. So this is probably okay for white. White would switch to the top side after this. In the game he played here. So the suggested move, when I went through the game with Katago, was for black to cut here. This is something we sometimes do when we want to get into a fight somewhat like this. So this fight would just be good for black. It would be, the white stones would be very close to dead. And if white uses this move, even if black takes here, then this would be creating a forcing move here, and so white would still be under a great deal of pressure on both sides. So when black cuts here, the problem with this is that I believe the ladder favors white. Yes, so it favors white. If you're interested in the ladder, you just have to get to this point, after which white pushes once through at this point. It's going to be a ladder. But black can attach here, making a ladder break. So white can't really afford for black to escape here, and white would capture the one stone. This was slightly better than the game variation for black. Black would be getting into the left side. In the game, black simply played here, and white is no longer going to connect here. So it's slightly better for white to take here, which is putting pressure on black's group in the corner. And in this case, white got to sacrifice these stones in the lower right, lower left on a small scale. So this was good enough for white's moyo there. You can see this probably has to do with the ladder that black was capturing here a little bit, but it's also important in surrounding the black territory on the bottom side. And white played here. So this is the final decisive fight. When white plays here, white is looking at cutting points here on the second line and is trying to make sabaki, you might say, or to deal with the weak group here that white has on the right, and also has ideas of a territory in the center of the board. So it's sort of one or the other, and white can live with either settling the group on the right or getting some territory in the center. So black cuts, and white is still looking at these cuts on the second line, so that's what black has to be careful of. And you see that with this move here, creating a solid connection, or actually it's a hanging connection, but creating a connection here by playing the Tari at G16 finally gets rid of the bad Aji on the second line there. So after this, black doesn't really have to worry about those cuts on the second line very much. But it did give white time to fix the shape in the center. So the fight extended to the center. You can see in this case white's not getting territory in this area. So that black group is in the way and it's not going to turn into a white territory. But white can chase the black group in a way that's going to reinforce white's group on the right. So that's how it's working for white. Okay, so yes, black is alive on the right side. That's what black was doing there. I think that AlphaGo wanted to peep here to give black a heavy shape, I believe. And so white's score did go down a little bit, but regardless, it is a winning position for white. So white does have an advantage here. It's not that the black group is going to die. This was a double threat here. If white connected, black would be able to capture the 3 stones. So white has to save those 3 stones to continue this attack that white has in the center. And that's what white is doing with this exchange. And all of that stuff with the cut at L18 was just to make this Atari Sente, so he could save those 2 stones with Sente next. Because at this point, black doesn't have time to take them. Black has to go back basically to a move that protects the center. Okay, so now this group in the center, it's alive or it's going to connect out. Because if white plays here, then black can push through. Or if white plays here, it's too wise. So that's what black did there. But white was satisfied just to capture these stones. Capture the cutting stone, you might say. And finally, white extended here. So with this, now the ladder favors white, so white can capture these stones. And the fact that this move here filled one of black's liberties means that if black tries to push out, white can eventually cut here and capture the cutting stone. So that would just be a disaster for black. So with this, white captured a chunk out of black's territory there on the bottom side, and black resigned. So white had a decisive lead at this point. So to recap what happened here, it was a very close game in the beginning, just to look at some of the moves. A very interesting trade that they did there in the start. And I think the game started to turn sour for black after white got this point. And so white's territory was fairly well defined, and black did not really have an attack against white in the lower left because of the fact that white was extending at C12. So that was a pretty important move that helped white deal with this weak group in the lower left also. And after that, they were playing fairly quickly. Even if one thinks of the fact that they only had 30 minutes, they did have 40 seconds for each move. So they could have been spending more time. I had the impression that they were playing very quickly. It could be the fact that there was less pressure because it was 2 Koreans in the final, but it did seem to move forward very quickly. And this is where Shin Jinseo finally resigned, and Shin Minjun became the champion. So thank you for watching, and that's it for this video.